And the kind of museum that I might like to visit would be one where there are paintings by very famous painters of the world, and maybe paintings of long ago of historical importance, and landscapes and so on. So you just need to keep on speaking about something that you might want to do in the future, even if you haven't done it in the past. So is it like it's okay to say that? It's okay to say that because it shows that you can manipulate the language. You can talk about the future. So you don't have an experience of the past. So you say, I haven't been to any museum. Yes. That's a good use of past tense. Yeah. And then you say, but I would certainly like to visit a museum in the future. Yes. That means you can handle the future also. You can talk about the future also. And in the future, I'd like to go to such and such city. You can divert a little bit also. You can say, for instance, I hear that Delhi has many museums or London has many museums, and I would certainly like to visit some museums when I'm in London. You just have to keep on speaking. That just shows your ability to put the sentences together. Yes, without knowing about it. Yeah, even if you don't know about it, you can just say what you might like to do, what you might have heard of, even if you haven't been there yourself, but your friends have told you. Yes. Or you read it somewhere that such and such place is very good, it's very interesting, I read about it, I would certainly like to see it. So when you use language like that, and you might have noticed that the tone in which I have spoken is also important in speaking. So when you speak in that kind of tone with emphasis, like I would certainly like to visit some place like that in the future, there you are showing that your pronunciation and tone is fine along with the sentences. Yes. So that's what counts in the test. Okay. Yeah. Finally, I can speak better now. So there was one last question now. Yeah. So can we use Indian vocabulary? It's very confusing for us sometimes. Yes. Now we often get subjects where a certain culture is involved. For example, it could be that a candidate from Vietnam is asked about which is the favorite dish in your region. Yes. So obviously that candidate might use some name of a dish from his or her native language. That would be or some kinds of a dress or some kinds of festivals. Yes. So festivals, obviously, in every culture, they have their own names. Today we know about something like Halloween, etc., but we didn't always know what is Halloween. Yes. Only the people in that culture knew about Halloween. Similarly, people in the West, maybe earlier they didn't know what is Diwali or Holi. Now they know a bit more about it. So when you mention these words in your language, you are showing that you are willing to explain what is that festival, what is that food. Yes. So you can use the original words in your language because the sentences are in English. Yes. And then you may also use some other kinds of phrases or words that might explain that kind of food, dress, or cultural behavior, or whatever that question involves, in your own, not using a whole sentence in your own language. Yes. But just a word, and then you try to explain the word. For example, if you say something like, in India, the staple food is rice, but in the north of India, we eat chapati or roti a lot, which is made of wheat or maize. So now everybody these days all over the world, people do know about Indian cuisine. So they know what roti is. Yeah, we don't have to use the English. You don't really have to use the English word for roti. Yes. And try and get into all sorts of confusion about it's a pancake or it is this or that. So try to translate it because you can't really have the exact translation. Yes. So you can use the word and then you can say that it's made of something. Yes. It's made of wheat or maize, and then we don't bake it in the oven. And so we can just explain a little bit about how it's made or whatever, but we need not translate in such a way because sometimes translation looks very odd. It sounds quite odd. Yeah. And also to further kind of elaborate, sometimes there are terms from Western culture also. For example, there is sometimes a question asked that do people like to go to the countryside? You know, so now the thing is that for people in India, we don't think about countryside in the same way as the English may think about the countryside. We think about villages or we talk about rural areas, but we don't talk about countryside as such. For them, the countryside has got a different, little bit of a different meaning to it. And similarly, weekends. Weekend, if there's a question about how do people spend their weekends in your country. So now a lot of people don't even know what a weekend is. They don't have this concept of weekend because that is not there in certain cultures. However, it is part of the test because only if you are well informed in English, in your vocabulary, you would know words like weekend. If you're from a higher level of vocabulary, then you would know a word like weekend. It's not such an uncommon or a difficult word. So you would have come across this word in some time in your reading and so on. So if you understand what this word means, that means that you have a level of understanding of that language, level of command in that language. So that is why sometimes certain words or certain questions are put to see whether you can get to that point where you can answer the question, understand, comprehend what the question is, and answer it. And you can even say, like, if you are proficient, you can even say, well, in our country, we don't have a concept of weekend because people work throughout the week and they also work on weekends. Whereas in the West, they don't. They relax on the weekends and they don't work on the weekends. So that's a difference. But having said that, we have lots of other holidays, and people in our country spend their holidays or their Sundays in visiting their friends and relatives or in going out somewhere. So you can then just give a quite a good answer that way. Okay. Even if you're not so sure about what you have to say, but you can still kind of talk about something because weekend means leisure, recreation, rest, time for enjoyment. So you can just use these words, the weekends are for recreation or something like that. That just shows that you have good vocabulary, basically. Okay. Yeah. So you have solved all my questions. Thank you so much. Right, right. I hope that with this you are able to do your test very well in the speaking test and get a high band. Hopefully, ma'am. That will be helpful. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. All the best. Thank you, ma'am.